You know Gray Bar for electrical parts, but there's one more thing you may not be thinking of us for that can help maximize your next project's total value. Our pre-project planning services are designed to help you win the bid, save on labor costs, and keep your installers productive across your entire build. The sooner you call us, the better. Because when we're there from the beginning, we can anticipate your needs and help you solve problems before they become problems. Yep, Gray Bar does that.
It's not often that we get to take vacations in the middle of the season. Sam just got back from as tropical and glamorous a destination last night as possible. Tell people where you were, Sam.
Yeah, I traveled south. I got in my car. I brought our good friend Kelsey Hennigan along with me. We got on I-95. We drove, and then we got off at Trenton, New Jersey.
Trenton, New Jersey. Man, oh man.
Which I gotta say,
are you tan?
I am tanner, yes, because I did not bring sunscreen, and a lot of baseball involves you sitting outside waiting for interviews and stuff like that. So I am tanner than I was this time yesterday.
Okay.
But I got to say, where Arm & Hammer Park was, I like that location. It's right next to the river. Yeah, you've been there. When you worked with Altoona. Yeah, it's a nice, pretty much cookie cutter park, but it gets the job done. I was very happy with it.
Trenton Thunder hosted the Eastern League All-Star Game last night. Sam was in attendance, and we'll talk about that coming up in a little bit. And we welcome you into this week's episode of the Show Before the Show podcast from MILB.com, the 168th episode. Thanks for tuning in wherever you found us on Apple Podcasts and Google Play and everywhere else. And you can find us at MILB.com/podcast as well. And give us a rating and a review and a subscription and let us know what you think of the show. You can get in touch, podcast at MILB.com. We did get an email into podcast at MILB.com from yet another attendee of the Eastern League All-Star Game. We'll talk about here in a little while coming up. But before we get to all that, got to talk about the biggest showcase game coming up this week as we get started with three strikes on this week's episode. Three topics of the most pressing variety of minor league baseball. And the Futures game is coming up on Sunday. The United States and the world will match wits with some of the top prospects in baseball. 30 of Major League Baseball's top 100 prospects will be included on rosters for the U.S. and world teams for the 2018 MLB All-Star Futures game in Washington, D.C. And looking at these rosters, Sam, there's a lot of talent across each of them. It seems like top-level talent is slanted toward one side or the other, but which Futures game roster would you prefer among these two?
Yeah, I did a tool shed about this on Wednesday. Rosters came out last Friday. They were announced on MLB Network. We did a quick post about them, kind of announcing them. You can find them on the site. But then I did kind of a tail of the tape type situation, comparing each team by position group, catchers, infielders, outfielders, and pitchers. And the way you kind of stack it up that way, this U.S. team is just loaded. I mean, both teams are loaded. Don't get me wrong. Like, you put the U.S. team, the world team, either one against your kind of average minor league team almost at any level, and they would be favored. But this U.S. team is just absolutely loaded almost at every group. I particularly like the infield where they could conceivably have top 100 prospects the entire game. Peter Alonso, top 100 prospect. Bo Bichette, top 100 prospect. Ke'Bryan Hayes, top 100. Keston Hiura, Carter Kieboom, Ryan Mountcastle, Brendan Rodgers. All of these guys are somebody we've been talking about all season long. Some of them play multiple positions, which is going to be really interesting because Rodgers, Kieboom, Bichette, they could all play shortstop at any point. One of them is probably going to have to play second base. It's probably Bichette or Rodgers. Mountcastle, Hayes, Rodgers, they could all play third base. Torrey Hunter is the manager of this team, is a very good problem to have. Really excited to see how he kind of makes that work and what the instructions are going to be given to kind of make that U.S. infield work. But as good as that infield is, the outfield might be even better. Joe Adell, Alex Kirilloff, Kyle Lewis, Taylor Trammell. Again, 4 out of the 5 representatives there are ranked among the top 100, and all 4 of those are extremely toolsy. Joe Adell, might be the breakout prospect of the year. He's a first-round pick from last year, but he's hit at Class A. He's hit at Class A Advanced. He's shown good speed. He's shown really good power. He's shown an exceptional hit tool. Some worries about his arm from last year seem to be quelled. He's playing well in the outfield. He seems really well set up for, a guy we've talked about all year long. You put him on the national, may I even dare say it, the international stage in a futures game, and then all of a sudden he becomes a star that the entire world of baseball knows. He seems really well set up for that. But Kirilloff, he's at Class A advanced now, Fort Myers in the Twins system. He was knocked out all last year with Tommy John surgery. He's got really good power coming from the left side, a good strong arm himself, even coming off the elbow surgery. So that'll be really cool. Taylor Trammell, all tooled up, really cool to see. The one advantage I would say the world has over the U.S. is in the catching department, and even that's going to get a little interesting. Francisco Mejia is the top catching prospect in baseball, has been on an absolute tear since the beginning of June, hitting almost close to 400 since June 1st. He participated in the AAA All-Star game just last night in his hometown. I don't know if you want to call it that, but in his home park in Columbus. And he's listed under catchers for the world team, but in the International League, or for the AAA All-Star game playing for the International League. He actually started in right field in that game in an exhibition. What are they going to do with him? David Ortiz is the manager of that. What kind of instructions are the Indians going to give him on Mejia? I would like to see him play behind the plate. That's his best position. Let him show off. But the Indians are trying to make him into an outfielder, trying to get his bat to the majors the best they can. Maybe they'll say, hey, listen, would you mind getting him some time in right or at third base? We'll have to keep an eye out on that. But beyond that, Keibert Ruiz, a 19-year-old catcher, he'll turn 20 on July 20th, has been playing all year at AA Tulsa, kind of holding his own, really turning into a well-rounded catcher. I talked to somebody on the Tulsa staff last week. They said, it's really cool to see how he's grown behind the plate, kind of holding his own, not spectacular numbers in the Texas League, but he's 19 years old playing at AA. The Dodgers really trust him. He's playing alongside Will Smith at that Tulsa place, or in that Tulsa roster. He has some cover. What he can do with a staff like this is going to be really exciting. But for the world pitching, as good as that U.S. offense will be, I look at the world pitching and I just don't see the depth there to kind of limit those bats. Jesus Luzardo, friend of the podcast, is the only top 100 arm on the world side. He's technically representing Venezuela, where his parents are from. Interestingly, he was born in Peru to Venezuelan parents. They eventually moved to the United States. He was drafted. He's an American player for all intents and purposes, but will be representing his parents' home country, which is really neat here in the Futures game. The only top 100 arm for the world. Meanwhile, the U.S. has some really big names, along the lines of Dylan Cease, Hunter Green, Mitch Keller, Matt Manning, Justice Sheffield, Kyle Wright. Forrest Whitley was initially on the roster. He got replaced by Luis Ortiz. He's dealing with an injury right now. In this type of showcase, the U.S. roster could conceivably send out top 100 arms deep into the 5th and 6th inning, where the world roster is going to kind of run dry in that well pretty quickly. Not to say the world isn't going to have some fun arms. Jorge Guzman, I wouldn't be surprised to see a 102, a 103 whenever he takes the mound for the world side, the Miami Marlins prospect who they got from the Yankees last year. But in terms of just depth, exciting names, exciting tools, it's going to be very difficult to beat this U.S. side on Sunday in Washington.
That is a loaded group, and this is really one of the funnest days of the baseball calendar, and especially for those of us who are prospect people. It's just cool to not only see all this talent collected together in one place, but the amount of fun that these guys have playing in the Futures game every year is so much fun to watch. So tune into that. If you're around on Sunday, tune into the Futures game, because it's always a really entertaining day, and that U.S. roster is going to be a lot of fun. World roster is going to be a lot of fun to watch, but that U.S. roster is really, really loaded. Strike two this week, Sam. Which Futures gamer do you believe has the biggest chance to stick out and really make an impression on this type of stage coming up this weekend?
Yeah, when I kind of formulated this question, I thought back to 2 years ago with Eloy Jimenez in San Diego, I believe it was. We know him now as being a top 5 overall prospect, big time power, pretty good defensively. Now he's a member of the White Sox organization. When he was in that Futures game, he was a member of the Cubs system. He was playing the lower levels. A lot of normal fans, I would say, hadn't really heard his name yet. Then he made a spectacular catch, showed up with the power in the game itself, showed up with the power in batting practice, all that kind of stuff. A year later, he's being traded for, Quintana from the White Sox and being a major role in a big trade, and now a big part of that White Sox rebuild. So, as much as it is one game and as much as it's an exhibition and it doesn't really count, and a lot of the guys we talk to will say, I'm just there for the fun of it and to hang out and get to meet a lot of these guys I've read about or heard about. It is a game on national TV. It's a chance for a lot of folks, who don't listen to this podcast, who don't necessarily check up on MILB.com all the time or any of the other big prospect sites out there, to see what the future will look like. Who can kind of take hold of a big game and show off big time power or big time speed or something like that. I know Brent Honeywell, kind of speaking from the pitcher side last year, was the only pitcher in the Futures game to throw 2 innings. He was eventually named MVP, but got to show, his kind of kitchen sink. I don't think he threw a screwball, but everybody really wanted him to. But got to show that he's more than just a screwball pitcher before undergoing Tommy John surgery this year. When he comes back, we hope it's a healthy recovery, but we still expect big things from Brent Honeywell. So kind of going through the names that I went through before, who's kind of stacked up well to stand out in that regard. I said what I said about Adele, and I do think that kind of plays into this question a little bit. Just a guy who can do everything extremely well. He could hit a home run, have an outfield assist, and steal a base all in this game, and it would not surprise me whatsoever. For an Angels team that at the major league level right now needs a little bit of optimism. I know Garrett Richards is going through an elbow injury right now, and despite getting Ohtani fever and Mike Trout having an historic year, the Angels still quite aren't measuring up. So if Adele can have a big game, that would get a lot of Angels fans even more excited about the farm system than they already are. One other one that I'll be watching is Hunter Green from the Red system, their top pick from last year. Hunter Green has already appeared on a Sports Illustrated cover, has already been declared the future of the sport, which, if you go back and read that story, was a little bit heavy-handed from my perspective. I'm a minor league writer. I'm surrounded by guys who are constantly called the next big thing. And Green is very good, don't get me wrong, but it was written at a time when we thought he could still be a two-way guy, and that doesn't seem like it's going to be the case with him going forward. He's going to stick on the mound. But he's another guy who can hit 100. He can really rear back and throw it, and when he's only getting 1 inning, maybe he's going to throw a little bit harder. But he's also, despite only playing at Class A so far, he's been on a big stage before. He's somebody who shines in that stage. I think that's why he went to the 2017 draft in Secaucus. He knows what it's like to be on TV. He doesn't shy away from the spotlight. So despite his relative inexperience, he could be somebody who really shows his stuff and shines bright on the big stage. So I'm interested to see how he can kind of plug himself in there. He'll be going up against AA bats, AAA bats for the first time. What does he do against them? How does he attack them? Does he just try to use velocity to get it done, or does he work in his off speed? I'll be really interested to see. But again, Reds could use some optimism, as well as it's gone under the Jim Riggleman era. They're all looking to Hunter Green to kind of have a big day, and I will be looking for that too. So those are a couple of names that I think will be sticking out on Sunday. But be prepared to be surprised. These are all very talented guys that are all in this game for a reason. They all are tooled up, and all it takes is one good swing, one good inning, whatever, and it could change some of these guys' trajectories being in front of these many scouts and this many fans. So really excited. I'll be there Sunday. Let me know what you guys are looking for or whatever. We'll have podcast interviews from the Futures game as well. But yeah, like you said, Tyler, one of the best days of the year in terms of the minor league calendar.
My 2 prospect crushes, I think, are destined for big days. Sam, I'm gonna go with that. One of them is not really that much of a reach, the highest ranked prospect who's going to be taking part in this, but a guy who I don't think has really arrived quite as much on the internet or on the national landscape as some of these other guys. But Fernando Tatis Jr., the Padres shortstop prospect, who has been a terrific prospect throughout the entirety of his career. But the fact that he does play in the San Diego organization and is still young for his level, hasn't really garnered quite the same headlines as somebody like Eloy or Gleyber Torres when he was coming up, obviously being in the Yankee system. But Fernando Tatis Jr. seems like the type of guy who could really step up big on a big stage. I also really like Keston Hiura in the, or Hiura, as he said when he called me. I got to start pronouncing his name correctly. Keston Hiura in the Milwaukee Brewers organization, who's with Double-A Biloxi now and tore his way through the Class A Advanced Carolina League with the Carolina Mudcats earlier this season. Just everywhere he's gone, he has done total damage. Was a first-round selection last year at UC Irvine. His numbers this year at the Class A Advanced level, 320, 382, 529, a slash line in 50 games. Since jumping up to Double-A, he's actually tailed off a little bit over the last 10 days, 2 weeks or so, but still a slash line of 271, 328, 415, so he's handling that level at 21 years old. But just a very capable defender, a guy who really, as his manager at Class A Advanced told me, was not hitting as well until he started playing the field. He DH'd a lot for the first month of the season. When he finally started getting work defensively, when they felt like he was fully healthy and could handle it out of the gate this season, that's when he really started coming on in all facets of his game. So I really, really like Keston Hiura, and he's another one to keep an eye on. If you are unfamiliar with the Brewers' second base prospect, you probably won't be for too long. And strike three this week, Sam. Yesterday we had the International League and Pacific Coast League collide in the AAA All-Star Game at Huntington Park in Columbus, and as well we had the Eastern and Western divisions battling it out in the Eastern League All-Star Game at Arm & Hammer Park in Trenton, and you were in attendance for that. Give us a report on what it was like at the Eastern League All-Star Game.
Yeah, so this was pretty much dominated by kind of a perfect storm of, the game is in Trenton, so it's about an hour and a half from here in New York City. Tim Tebow was in the game, which we discussed, and Tim Tebow was a Mets prospect, so it was a little bit of a circus from that point of view. I will, say the Trenton Thunder staff handled it very well in terms of, Tim Tebow had a press conference yesterday at 2:30, got to answer all the questions. I know that's kind of part of the Tim Tebow tour through the Eastern League. He gives a press conference basically everywhere he goes. But still, that was kind of well handled in terms of, all the New York media got to speak with Tebow. He got to answer all the questions and all that kind of stuff. And Kelsey Hennigan, like I said, who came with me last night, did a story on that, how he has kind of built himself into an all-star and what the reactions were from other all-stars to being around Tebow, being in the same league and all that kind of stuff, including a quote from Bernie Williams, who played the national anthem before the game. But it was basically like the whole stadium kind of perked up for Tebow, which I thought was interesting. I turned to the Kelsey, it was a 4-4 tie, and I'll get into what happened after that in a bit. But Tebow came up with, in a 4-3 game, one runner on, one out. He had already doubled earlier. He doubled it in his first at-bat. The entire place was basically waiting for him to do, a Roy Hobbs walk-off home run into the skylights, and fireworks would go off and all that kind of stuff. And he ended up striking out, which, Tim Tebow strikes out a lot. He strikes out more than 30% of the time, so not a huge surprise. But then everybody kind of felt let down, at least in the stadium, not in the press box necessarily. And Brendan Rodgers came up after him, who was by far the best prospect in the game. And I'm just looking around and like, listen, I get it. We're in a niche. I know Brendan Rodgers more than the average fan in that stadium, but Brendan Rodgers should be piquing everybody's interest, and they just everybody looked around and was just like, oh, okay, here's a non-Tebow guy who could win the game. Like, if Rodgers won the game on a 2-run walk-off homer, that would be a big deal for our site, and Kelsey did the recap, and that would immediately lead what we were doing. But Tebow just sucks up so much of the oxygen in any stadium he's in that it feels like a letdown to have a top 10 prospect come up with the game on the line, which part of me wishes I had gone up to Rodgers afterwards and kind of asked about that. Like, what is it like when you are not the guy in a situation? Despite for a long time, he's been the top prospect in the Rocky system. It was a big deal when he got called up to Hartford. It was a big deal when he started at Class A Advanced Lancaster. It'll be a big deal for Colorado folks, as you know, Tyler, when he goes to the Futures game this weekend. But for that one at bat, he wasn't. And it was just really interesting to see the Tebow circus kind of at full tilt, in the stadium that I was at. But putting that off to the side, the game did end in a 4-4 tie. Everybody was asking what happens in a tie in this kind of situation. Are we going to do the minor league rules of putting a runner on second base? Well, it is an all-star game. Both teams had already used up all their pitchers, and you don't want to ask more than an inning out of anybody in that game. So they did call it a tie after 9 innings, but they went to a hitting competition that was originally told to me that was 90 seconds. It ended up being 2 minutes. Each team picked one player, Zach Green for the Eastern Division and Will Craig for the Western Division. And it reminded me a little bit of MVP baseball in that you just hit as many balls as you can over 2 minutes and you get points. You get 100 points for a homer. It was never fully explained to us how many points you get for like a ball that reaches the outfield, how much you get for a ball that reaches, doesn't leave the infield, whatever. But at the end of the day, Will Craig won. He collected, he hit for, I don't know what the verb is you would use. He had 305 points. I think Zach Green had 275, and that technically gave the West the win. Not that anybody was really caring that much, but it just kind of goes to show like all-star games are exhibitions. We don't need to get too wrapped up in them. It was kind of crazy as we were all trying to figure out in the press box exactly what was going on. I'm sure it was equally confusing for fans. I was trying to tweet it out, and it was catching a little bit of fire on Twitter in terms of how is this working exactly? But yeah, it was fun. All-star games should be fun, and it was fun to both see the Tebow circus in person and see what exactly happens instead of Bud Selig throwing up his arms and just getting confused like he did in Milwaukee during the All-Star game about a decade ago, just saying like, we'll just throw it to a hitting competition and who cares, and we'll have some fun with it.
And we did get a question in for our one foul ball. A friend of the podcast, Kevin Delaria, who has emailed in several questions throughout the last couple of seasons. Kevin emailed and said that he was there last night in Trenton and asked, quote, about the hit-off tiebreaker. Is that the norm for All-Star games after 9, or is there no norm, as I'm sure it doesn't happen all that often? I was expecting the base runner on second thing to happen, but I'm guessing the point was just to get the game over. Just curious. Yeah, I don't think there really is much of a norm. I think back in the day, leagues used to go into extra innings and would play, maybe 1 or 2 extra innings. I think we have seen games called in ties before in minor league. I know we have in minor league all-star games. But I think it's cool that certain teams and levels and leagues and organizations have decided, why don't we have some fun with this? And whether it's a home run derby type of thing or, a hitting competition like it was yesterday, I think it's kind of neat. But there really is there's no set rule for that type of situation in an all-star game.
No, it's completely set by the league ahead of time, I will say. It's not everybody gathering around and just being like,
just deciding the day of the game.
Right. I talked to Altoona Curve manager Michael Ryan after the game yesterday and was like, so have you ever done anything like this before? He's like, no, but we got a memo, a while back that this was a possibility. And then we got a reminder before the game that this was a possibility. And at that point, you kind of know it was just going to happen. Of course it was, because it was just so silly. Like once you start thinking about it too much, you just know that you're going to get involved in that. But we did kind of get another instance of this earlier this year. Just a couple weeks ago, the Texas League All-Star game ended in a 2-2 tie, and it ended up going to a home run derby between Corpus Christi's Taylor Jones and Springfield's Victor Roach. That was at least a straight home run derby type situation instead of a timed clock with points, which just was confusing for everybody. But yeah, it completely depends on the league. There's no minor league initiative to decide tie games in All-Star games.
So that'll do it for 3 strikes and our 1 foul ball, and Sam's going to get us set up with our All-Star interview for this week's episode from yesterday's Eastern League All-Star game in Trenton.
Yeah, so before the game, I was able to grab Toronto Blue Jays prospect TJ Zeuch, Eastern League All-Star, obviously having a pretty good season with AA New Hampshire as of right now, at the Eastern League All-Star break. He has a 3.21 ERA for New Hampshire, only 44 strikeouts in 73 innings, but he is an elite ground ball pitcher. He leads actually all Eastern League pitchers right now in ground ball rate, getting ground balls at a rate of above 50%, I believe. So we get into that a little bit. That's why I wanted to talk to him. We live in a day and age now of baseball where strikeout is king. Hitters aren't too worried about strikeouts. Pitchers can rack up strikeouts, by the dozens in certain cases. That is not who TJ Zeuch is. How did he become a ground ball pitcher? Was it a conscious decision? We got all into that yesterday before the Eastern League All-Star game in Trenton. Hey, everybody. Just before we get the interview started with Zeuch, I should have explained this in the last segment, but just wanted to jump in here again to explain this. The kind of scenario that we got to talk to players yesterday was on the field before the game, a couple hours before first pitch. And, it was really nice to get so many guys in one place, and they're all-stars, so it's neat to see so many guys we always talked about in one place. But part of that was that there are some pregame festivities that are going on. Bernie Williams, I think, as I mentioned in the last segment, got to play the national anthem on his guitar, which was really neat. But he was rehearsing when I started the interview with TJ Zeuch. So for this first minute, you're going to hear the national anthem in the background. Just know that A, it's played by Bernie Williams, which is pretty cool. And B, it might make for a more difficult listening experience. Trust me, it's going to be over in a minute. We would cut it out, but it does kind of set up a good, some of the other questions I ask as the interview goes along. So just bear with us for the first minute. Trust me, you'll be able to hear Zeuch's answers. And otherwise, here we are with TJ Zeuch.
Quick questions. First off, congrats on being here.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
How has this first half gone for you? What do you feel like the biggest development so far has been in 2018?
I think it got off to a little bit of a shaky start, but it's been a lot better as of lately. I've been kind of up and down on my last couple, but I think I've gotten my feet underneath me and kind of started to figure things out. I think development-wise, the biggest thing is I've developed a better changeup. I started throwing it more often and using it more. I think just the kind of pitcher I am, being a contact guy, having a good fastball changeup combo is big for me.
Right. Yeah, you mentioned being a contact guy. When did you feel like that locked into your kind of personality on the mound, and what kind of pitcher you need to be going forward?
I've always kind of been a contact guy, even in college. In college I had a few more strikeouts than I do now, but even then I was a efficient pitcher. Probably throwing strikes and guys were hitting on the ground. It was going to be a pretty quick game. I think it's just developed more in pro ball. I think guys have developed a better approach to the plate. Just been able to keep the ball down and throw strikes and get guys hitting the ground.
So you feel like you're the same pitcher you were in college, or have you had to adjust on the fly in terms of what that feedback you're getting back from hitters?
I've obviously had to make some adjustments, but I would say for the most part I'm the same. Attack with the fastball, work from there, try to get ahead as soon as I can, but the biggest thing, just throw strikes for me. But yeah, like I said, the biggest development thing I think has been developing a changeup.
Yeah.
That's probably the biggest change in college. I really didn't throw one.
Right.
And obviously for me to pitch well in this league and to pitch well going forward, I'm going to have to use that as a vital weapon for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know when I talk to people about changeups, it's just throwing it more. But what are you doing with it when you are throwing it more? What are you kind of working on with that specific pitch?
I think the biggest thing for me is just throwing it just like a fastball. I tend to kind of let up on it, which is kind of get my hand underneath the ball. I'm almost trying to make it slower, which is obviously going to result in some pretty tough pitches and wild command with it. So I think it's more of a mindset thing of just kind of grip it and rip it.
Mm-hmm. And when you did enter pro ball, what do you feel like the Blue Jays were doing differently with you than the guys at Pitt were doing? What was the biggest adjustment from that kind of point of view?
For the most part, when I first got into pro ball, they kind of let me do my thing, let me find my own way for a little bit, which I appreciated. Kind of let me get my feet underneath me before they started making suggestions. And obviously, the changeup for them was a big deal, as it still is. And that's been my biggest requirement, I would say, be to develop a better changeup, get better action on it. But other than that, I really haven't done anything different than when I was in college.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of being a ground ball pitcher, how much do you feel like your height kind of helps with that in terms of getting extension and keeping the ball lowered in the zone? And
I think it helps a great deal, just being able to, if I'm on top of the ball, it's going to create a great plane. It's going to be a downward angle, which is already in itself is going to be hard to generate upward contact. You put the ball in the air, but if you add that with a sinker that I throw 100% of the time now with a fastball, the downward motion or downward action, it's going to be even harder to put that ball in the air unless obviously I leave it over the middle or I hang it.
Right.
Then anything's easy to hit in the air if it's hung.
Yeah, and with the way the game is kind of going now, it's so much talk about a fly ball revolution and kind of that. How much have you kind of adjusted the other way and going towards ground balls to keep the ball out of there?
I haven't really had to make a huge adjustment yet. Obviously, just with any pitcher, if you keep the ball down, you're going to have success. But in terms of me, keeping my sinker down allows it to move more. So that's going to obviously generate more ground balls, and it's going to, result in a quicker game and a better game for me most of the time.
And when you said the sinker is basically what you're throwing all the time now when you throw a fastball, when did you make that adjustment to switch that?
I think last year was the biggest adjustment. Last year, or in previous years, I would mix in a four seam here and there, just try and go up high, maybe change the guy's eyesight or change eye level. But I realized, this year and towards the latter part of last year in the fall league, that didn't really fit with my pitching style. My style had always been, from work from the knees and work from the knees down. So now I would throw sinkers and they would be all down, and then I would throw a four seam, and a hitter could see, it's up high. It's a pretty easy take for him. So just kind of sticking to, moving. If I'm going to move out of the zone, going either farther down or off the plate.
And you mentioned the fall league. What was your biggest takeaway from that experience? Obviously tacking on some innings after the injury was helpful, but what did you get away from that, seeing some new bats and some tougher bats?
I think seeing the tougher bats and having the success that I did out there gave me a new sense of confidence. I think that was, that's been big for me this year. So I faced guys who are obviously at the top of the game, at the top of the minor league level, and the organization's best hitters out there. But I think the even bigger thing for me out there was going out and seeing other pitchers, kind of seeing how they go about business. I've mentioned Max Fried countless times. He's made his big league debut with the Braves, and I think he's just a tremendous pitcher. And you see him, how he goes about his routine in between starts and how he sticks to the same routine no matter if he has a good start, which, out there, every start he threw was amazing. It was very fun to watch. But just kind of see how he sticks to his process and sticks to his routine no matter what.
And between the fall league and this first trip to AA, what is the most eye-opening at-bat you've had so far? Hitter you had to go up against?
Honestly, I wouldn't put it into one hitter. I think the most eye-opening thing for me has been my two games against Portland. They've really taken advantage of me. I haven't made very many good pitches against them, and then they, at this level, you can't really get away with much, and they really showed me that, if you miss by a couple inches or it's just a little up, or even if you're just a little wild, then they're going to take full advantage and they're going to tack on runs pretty quick.
Mm-hmm. And with the way the game is kind of going and it being so stat heavy, when you're looking at after a start, what numbers are you looking at to kind of determine how good of a start it was outside of just feel?
First thing for me is how deep into the game I went, because I think for me, as a starter, going at least 6 innings is the biggest thing, because that gives my bullpen it gives my team a chance. Because if I come out of the game like I did against Portland after 3 2/3 innings, you have to use up a lot of your bullpen guys, and that can screw your team up for the whole series. So innings pitched is definitely number one, and then I look at walks. So if I'm putting guys on, just giving them bases, obviously it's going to put me in a lot of trouble. It's going to put me in a lot of tough situations. And I like to avoid those, obviously, as any pitcher would. But other than that, obviously I look at how many groundouts I had, because that's the type of pitcher I had. But other than that, that's all I'm really worried about. Is giving my team a chance by going deep and giving my defense a chance to make plays by not just putting guys on base and full balls.
Right. And in terms of the second half coming up, you're tagging on more innings than you've ever had before. What would a successful second half look like for you?
Just going as many quality starts as I can. I'm sure at this point I think I have 7 or 8 starts left. I think I'd like to get at least 50 innings out of those 7 or 8 starts. We'll see how that plays out with what the organization wants to do. And like you said, that's the most innings I've ever thrown.
Right.
Obviously, I'm sure they have a plan in place. I would hope, and I believe they're going to just kind of let me go and let me finish the year as I had started. But I think the biggest thing for me is just get as many innings as I can. Just quick outings.
And you mentioned the tough start to the year, but things have kind of improved as the year gone on. Do you feel like this is where you thought you would be at the halfway point, starting out at Dunedin, getting called up to New Hampshire? in an All-Star game? Do you feel like it's gone according to plan this first half?
I would definitely say it's gone according to plan, better than plan. I honestly didn't think when I got up here that I was going to make the All-Star game, and just how my first couple starts had gone, and I didn't think, I had been here very long. I had only, made a handful of starts here, obviously more than I had needed, but I was here for about a month and a half maybe before this All-Star game, so it was kind of a shock to me, but also, a very happy surprise.
And how fun has this New Hampshire team been in the first half? Joining them when you did, and then, all the names everybody talks about, I'm sure, but what is it like to be with that team on a daily basis?
It's unbelievable. It really helps, give you more confidence on the mound, because if I go out there and I have a bad day, I give up 5 or 6, we're probably still going to win the game. Because our offense, even without Vladdy, can put up 10 runs on any given night. But with Vladdy and Kevin and Bo and all those guys and Jonathan Davis, it's unbelievable the run scoring potential we have as a team, and how quick we can score 5 or 6 runs in an inning.
Benjamin Hill is getting set to head out on the road. We're recording this on the 12th, and the first date listed on Ben's next road trip is the 13th. Are you, do you have your bags with you right now while you're recording this? Are you heading right to the airport?
No, I'm flying out tomorrow morning from New York City to Orlando, and then seeing a game that night. In a perfect world, I do like to travel completely separately, but this time around, I'm playing it fast and loose. Waking up tomorrow morning, and I'll be at a game in Kissimmee that night.
The Florida Firefrogs. And hello, Ben. Welcome in.
Hello, Tyler. Hello, Sam Dykstra. Sam Dykstra sitting to my left.
I am sitting to your left. Hello, Ben.
This week.
And when I walked into the room, Sam Dykstra had his feet up on this chair.
I like to get comfortable for this podcast, Ben. That's all.
Yeah, no. It's a very casual operation in a good way.
Yeah, no, right.
Ben, Sam and I have this discussion every year when Sam goes down to the Grapefruit League because it's similar. There are those words that sometimes you pronounce them one way, sometimes you pronounce them the other. Is it Kissimmee? Is that the way that it's officially? Because sometimes I feel like I hear people say Kissimmee.
Yeah, I've been struggling with that, but I just settled on Kissimmee, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong.
If you're in Kissimmee, or if you are a Floridian, take time away from your bath salts and send us the accurate pronunciation of that town. Ben's going to be there coming up tomorrow. That is the first stop on his trip. The Florida Firefrogs will take on the Daytona Tortugas, and then we'll get to see the Tortugas again coming up on Saturday against the Bradenton Marauders, and then through Jacksonville, Augusta, Charlotte, Asheville, Johnson City, and there has been one addition to this trip as well. But give us a little preview of going through the Carolinas and Florida and kind of Georgia, although technically the Augusta Green Jackets are no longer actually in the state of Georgia, but run us through this trip.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. I mean, I'm also not looking forward to it because I'm talking to you guys right now, and I still have work to do in the office, and I haven't packed yet and all that. So right now I'm all in my own head, but once I get going, it's going to be okay. So now I'm excited about it right now.
Yeah, this is the start, Ben, right here.
Yeah, here we go. Clearing my mind. Well, as you guys know, there's only 4 ballparks of the 159 active affiliated parks that I've not been to at this current moment in time. 2 of them are on this trip. One of them is the aforementioned Florida Firefrogs, who play in Kissimmee at a former Houston Astros spring training facility. The Firefrogs are the former Brevard County Manatees. So that's a team and ballpark I've never visited. It's talk about another word I can't pronounce properly. It's Osceola County Stadium.
That's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah, it's the Florida Firefrogs playing in Kissimmee.
I used to just call it Astros camp.
Yeah, Osceola.
I think it's Osceola.
Osceola, that's it, Osceola. Anyway, I'm going to be there to kick things off, a ballpark and team I've never visited. Then to Daytona, Jackie Robinson Ballpark, a great ballpark. Haven't been since 2012. Of course, they've since rebranded as the Tortugas. They used to be the Cubs. Now they're a Reds affiliate with a whole standalone Tortugas name. It's going to be Big Shelbowski night, so they're doing a pretty extensive Big Lebowski promotion there. Are the Tortugas, but the Big Shelbowski bobbleheads have gotten tied up in customs and will not be there on Saturday. I'm sorry to report.
Wait, really?
Yes.
This is like the turn the back uniform night or the future uniform night that happened like the early 2000s where all these jerseys got lost in transit.
Yeah, well, they haven't been lost. They've just been delayed. I got that email yesterday. So there will be no Big Shelbowski bobblehead, although maybe I'll have a voucher.
Right, yeah.
And, well, we'll see. We'll see. Then
your address there. Like, I want it to come to the office. I want to see what this one's going to look like.
Yeah, absolutely. We to be determined, the Big Shelbowski bobbleheads. Then from Daytona to Jacksonville, the Jumbo Shrimp, another team that's rebranded since the last time I visited when they were the Suns. That's going to be Words with Fans promo, a Scrabble theme, Words with Friends promo. You get a Jacksonville Scrabble type tile as a giveaway, and Will Anderson, a Scrabble champion, will be on hand to try to set the record for most simultaneous games of Scrabble played at once. So I'll get to witness that. That's very exciting on Sunday in Jacksonville. Then up to Augusta, Augusta used to play the Green Jackets. They used to play in Augusta, Georgia. Now they play at a new ballpark across the Savannah River in Augusta, South Carolina. So we got a new team, an old team in a new ballpark in a new state, the Augusta Green Jackets, and that's another ballpark I of course have not visited yet. SRP is the name of that park, and that's the only totally new facility to open in minor league baseball in 2018. Then up to Charlotte, haven't been there for 4 years, but it's a great night. I'm raising money for Versus Cancer this season, and going to be visiting a local children's hospital before going to the Knights game. So I'm sure that'll be a jam-packed day. On from there to Asheville, where they're playing as the Hippies, a alternate identity that started as the result of a Twitter feud with the Greenville Drive. I'm not sure the story behind that, but Asheville, McCormick Field, if you've ever been there, it's one of the greatest ballparks out there. And really looking forward to returning there. Then over the Appy League, hitting Johnson City Cardinals, because when I did the Appy League 2 years ago, Johnson City was rained out, so I'm giving them a chance at redemption. And then finally, just added to this itinerary, the Bristol Pirates on the 21st, where Dale Murphy and the governor of Virginia are going to be in attendance, and I will try to interview them both separately, if not also together. They might be friends.
That needs to be a podcast segment.
Yeah.
That's what you need to say for the podcast. Just Dale Murphy talking to the governor of Virginia.
Yeah, Murphy and the Gov.
Things. I don't even know what they would talk about. They could talk about what they had for lunch. I just want to know what.
Well, I'll pitch that. I'll pitch that to the two of them, and I'll say, guys, can you start a podcast called Things, where you just talk to each other every week, and we'll see how that goes.
Right.
So this is great. I just feel like I just went on a big rant, but this trip's going to have a lot going on. I'm kind of exhausted just talking about it. I'm exhausted thinking about it, but I know that I shan't regret it once it begins.
Seems pretty good. The sound hopefully not going to be like murderously hot, although I did notice that the title of your trip is Sweating in the South, so hopefully it won't be too bad for you. But Ben will be on the road, and make sure you check the blog, bensbiz.mlblogs.com, to see if he will be in a ballpark near you, especially if you're in a place in Florida that we can't pronounce. Promo preview, the Lake Elsinore Storm. This game has already passed us, but the Lake Elsinore Storm did their annual Nothing Night, which is a game in which the Storm basically have a Seinfeld mentality of doing nothing. No video board, no PA system, there's no games, there's no contest, there's no music, nothing like that. And Ben kind of dove deeper into this time around. This is a cool promo, and it's one of those ones that I know a lot of other teams sort of jumped on and started doing this after Lake Elsinore first tried it.
Yeah, I mean, this is great. Obviously I've, made a career where a big part of my job is covering minor league baseball promotions and all the crazy things that teams do. But yet, sometimes it does get overwhelming, and sometimes, especially as a fan, you want to go to the ballpark and have nothing going on. And Nothing Night, this is the 10th annual iteration that just passed in Lake Elsinore, is that. Like you said, Tyler, they don't charge for tickets. You walk into the ballpark for free. You can bring your own food and drink as long as it's not alcohol. Nothing on the PA, no mascots, no national anthem singer. And so what happens is that when it's time for the national anthem, the fans just start singing, and then the players take the field based on the fans just starting to sing. So it's become it's a Monday night. It's called Nothing Night. You'd think that it wouldn't have that much cachet, but it's become a really popular night for the Storm. They said they get about 5,000 fans for a nothing night, which is a lot of fans, a lot more than nothing, and very good for a Monday night, pretty much in any minor league baseball context. And yeah, Tyler, like you mentioned, it's an idea that's happened around minor league baseball, especially in the Cal League. Other teams have picked up on it through the years. I love it. I've never gotten to attend a nothing night game in Lake Elsinore or otherwise, although some say that Bowie's Creek is pretty close. So
that's true.
Yeah, so we've seen approximations of it, but never been there for the real thing, for the full nothing. And I'm sure the Lake Elsinore Storm are going to keep doing it. And talking to Raj, and I'm going to butcher Raj's last name, Narayanan. Actually, I might not.
I think that was good.
Yeah, actually,
got it in one.
Yeah, I did it. Wow, I'm just so used to butchering anything I try to pronounce for the first time. Anyway, in talking to Raj, he said when they first started Nothing Night, they actually closed the bathrooms and brought in porta potties instead. But they no longer take it that far. And the original Nothing Nights, they also did not sell food or drinks. They literally sold nothing at the ballpark. But they actually got complaints, fans. Even if it was nothing night, wanting to buy food and drinks. So they do sell, though you can bring in your own. Anyway, great promotion. If you're a baseball purist and you're always complaining about how crazy minor league baseball promotions are, and for good reason probably, go to a nothing night or tell your local team to have a nothing night and celebrate the nothingness.
There's two things I want to point out about this. One I saw on Twitter after Monday night's game, which was the best thing I'd seen about Nothing Night, was somebody held up a sign at Nothing Night, and it was literally just a blank sign.
Yeah, that was brilliant.
Nothing on it whatsoever. And it's like, I love that sort of minimalist creativity, which was great. And two, one of my favorite quotes from a story you've done, Ben, is that this was the 10th Nothing Night.
Yes.
So normally, minor league teams love promoting whatever they can do. So if it's an anniversary of anything, they'll promote it. So the fact that this is the 10th Nothing Night, you would think like there would be, I don't know, a patch or something to commemorate. But here's the direct quote from Raj. There will be nothing. If we did anything, it'd be something. So the big plan is nothing. And it's just committing to the bit completely and wholeheartedly. And that's what made this story and this kind of promo one of my favorite things of the year.
He even takes it there's a step further at the end of the story. Ben notes that at the end of the season there will be an everything night in which the Storm do all of the stuff that they have done throughout the season. They kind of bring an element of all that back for the last promotional night of the season. And Raj's quote for that one is, there were a couple guys who said, what about doing a something night in the middle of the season? But that fizzled. Let's keep it all or nothing. Nothing has become something, and now we have everything. It's awesome to see. That's like, is he Larry David?
That's
actually?
deep,
Did you
man.
do this interview in person?
Yeah, he's a heady dude, Raj. I've gotten to know him through the years, and very dry sense of humor, self-deprecating, and I think the right personality to helm the ship when you're doing Nothing Night.
That is some existential stuff. Good work, Raj. I enjoy it. Benjamin Hill's on Twitter. He's at Ben's Biz. You can follow the trip on the blog, bensbiz.mlblogs.com. And if Ben is headed to a ballpark near you, go out and say hello and enjoy it, Ben. Travel safely.
Thank you. It's going to be a whirlwind, but I'm going to come back with lots of stuff and lots of stories and, lots of good times to regale all of you with. Every single one of you. Thank you very much. And thank you, Sam Dykstra, sitting to my left, and Tyler in Denver, Colorado, or somewhere thereabouts.
Way to your west, whichever direction that is.
Yeah, that's my left. I'm pointing west right now.
We're both left then. Me and Sam are both to your left. It's very fitting.
Yeah, swing it left. Let's go.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you.
Big thanks to TJ Zeuch, who has the most entertaining name to pronounce in minor league baseball, for joining the show a little while ago from yesterday's Eastern League All-Star game in Trenton, New Jersey. And a big thanks to Benjamin Hill as well, who was on the road probably as of the time you're listening to this podcast. So you can find Ben somewhere down in the southeast/Florida. Is Florida considered? I don't think Florida is considered part of the Southeast. I think it's just
Why would it not be? It's literally the most southeastern state we have.
Yeah, but I feel like Florida is just like its own. It's like, like
it's
Texas
own
doesn't
planet.
consider
I'll
itself
give you
part
that,
of the South. Well, yeah, that's true too.
The South stops at the Florida-Georgia line. And
email us and correct us on all of this stuff, please, somebody from Florida. MILB.TV, your place to watch all the top talent in minor league baseball. Sam, what are you watching on MILB TV this week?
Yeah, so I'm going to pick a game on Sunday. I won't actually be able to watch this game. I'm going to be at the Futures game in Washington, but this game I'm choosing does start at 1:35 Eastern. The Futures game starts at 4, so you at home could totally do both, make your own Sunday afternoon doubleheader if you so choose. Altoona is traveling to Erie. If you listened to our podcast a couple weeks ago, we talked to Erie managers Andrew Graham. One of the guys we talked about in that interview with Graham was Beau Burrows, a top 100 prospect who got to play in the Eastern League All-Star game the other day. He also participated in last year's Futures game and was kind of a standout there because he showed some real elite velocity in that game. It was a shorter stint. He's not going to throw upper 90s consistently now because he's trying to throw deeper into games. But going up against an Altoona lineup that's going to feature somebody like Will Craig, who won that hitting competition in the Eastern League All-Star game, that should be a pretty fun matchup. Burrow's looking to kind of pick up some strikeouts. Last year, he was a little bit more of a K machine, striking out 137 and 135 innings. Now it's at 72 and 84 2/3. But he's up to 31 total starts at AA. He's looking to crack through to AAA Toledo. Could take a really positive step in that direction with a good start Sunday at home against the Curve. So I'll be keeping an eye on that. If not, before the Futures game, certainly afterwards, checking in on Beau Burrows. What do you got your eye on this weekend, Tyler?
Yeah, I'm going to go to the California League and the Class A Advanced Inland Empire 66ers. Joe Adell will be part of that U.S. roster for the Futures game coming up on Saturday, and he's the top-ranked prospect in the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim organization. But Brandon Marsh, who is also an outfielder in that system, had 4 hits last night. Story I got to write, that was on Wednesday night for Inland Empire, but the type of guy who you can kind of tell is getting it figured out. Prior to that, he had hits in 8 of his last 10 games, had just a single hit in all those. Kind of breaks through with a flood on Wednesday. I think he's got hits in 23 out of his last 27 games now, so things are starting to come together for Brandon Marsh, and that's just a really talented roster. It's a really fun group in Inland Empire, and you can check out the 66ers at home this weekend against the Rancho Cucamonga Quakes, and a talented roster there as well. Rylan Bannon, some of the guys in the Los Angeles Dodgers organization, there's some really fun talent on that squad as well, so you can check out some late games from the California League if you are a night owl out on the East Coast and just want to watch baseball into the wee hours of the morning. Be sure to do so on MILB.TV. And coming up this weekend, be sure to catch the Futures game. Might catch a glimpse of Sam somewhere. Who knows? But Washington, D.C. and Nationals Park this weekend will be one of the coolest days on the minor league calendar all season long. That's coming up on Sunday, and a full slate of minor league games this weekend as well. And we'll be back to recap it all next week and talk to you about everything else that went on around the minor leagues for the week to come. And until then, thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you next week.